Thank you for tuning in to another edition of the All Cardinals podcast, Super Bowl edition, may I add. My name is Donnie, Druin, joined by my co-host Richie Bradshaw. Richie, we are just one day away from Super Bowl LVII 57.
You got it.
I'm not great with
LVII.
numbers. Regardless, the Super Bowl is here. I guess I have a towel I could have just looked at right here. So go me. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles will be playing at State Farm Stadium. The Arizona Cardinals will not be, but they remain in the headlines because they have yet to find a head coach. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But before we do, reminder, one day left. Guys, I bought this football hoping it would be a really cool Super Bowl giveaway. Don't disappoint me. All you got to do is go to the YouTube video that literally says giveaway. Just make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and then comment your game prediction, a score, and an MVP. Whoever gets the closest right, there's more details on the video description. We'll be getting that ball for free. Free Fitty, who does not like free stuff. So go ahead and make sure you do that. And while you are listening to us, go ahead and subscribe to us, comment, like, all that good stuff at Richie Brads36, at Donnie Druin. Richie, before we dive into the Cardinals head coaching search, how are you, my guy?
I'm pretty good, brother. I am excited for the Super Bowl. I'm excited for our little Super Bowl get together. I am very interested to see if this is going to be a slugfest or a shootout. I don't really know. You guys will see my Super Bowl predictions eventually when we upload those. So make sure you tune in and see what the All Cardinals team has to say about the Super Bowl. But I think we're going to be in for a real treat. But before we talk about the Super Bowl, obviously we got to talk about the Cardinals, who are still waiting on announcing their head coach. And we're pretty much on the edge of our seats as people who cover the Cardinals. And I'm sure Cardinal fans are really anticipating, or not anticipating, they're growing impatient with it. I know my dad has gotten sick and tired of waiting. And I know for a fact he's not the only one who is ready for the next head coach and for the future of the Cardinals.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different too because you and I are not Cardinals fans. We just so happen to cover the team. So I think it's a little different of a perspective that you and I both carry whenever it comes to this coaching search because, like, obviously you want to get a head coach in there sooner rather than later. And what's interesting is listening to a few of the players talk at Radio Row. Whether it was like NBC Sports or just like Up and Adams, Kay Adams, and anything along those lines. A lot of the players were also under the impression that they would have had a new leader sooner rather than later. And I think a lot of fans also kind of feel that. And like the fans are frustrated, and perhaps rightfully so, because it is taking a little bit longer than normal head coaching searches. I believe, I can't remember the last time a head coach candidate was hired after the Super Bowl. So, like, granted, a very, very long time. But we do have a quote from Cardinals owner Michael Bidwell, who said via the team's official website, quote, "It's Super Bowl weekend and the entire NFL is focused on the Super Bowl. So we're going to pause throughout the rest of the weekend and get restarted on this Monday morning. We are excited about the great progress we have made. Every bit of advice has been take your time, and we have. I'm sure there are frustrations with some of our fans, but we want to make the right decision, not the fastest decision." I think that comes right along with my train of thought. You've had Sean Payton dip out. You've had D'Amico Ryan's canceled interview on you. Frank Reich was kind of hired unexpectedly, I think might be the right word to describe that, from Carolina. Dan Quinn, both the Cardinals and Broncos missed out on him whenever he decided to return to Dallas as their DC. A lot of swings, a lot of misses. I think if any of those guys actually wanted to be the Cardinals head coach, we would have already had a head coach by now, but here we are.
It's just a situation that the Cardinals find themselves in, unfortunately, as some of these candidates have taken other opportunities. Obviously, it makes sense, too. I mean, Dan Quinn gets to stay in Dallas, where he's built himself a reputation as one of the best coordinators in football. He's very highly paid, if not the highest paid coordinator. D'Amico Ryans gets to go home. This is where he started his NFL career, was with Houston. It makes sense to connect the dots and see him go back to where it all began for him. Frank Reich gets to go to Carolina, where he gets to pick his quarterback of the future. They're either going to trade for a guy or they're going to get a young guy. So it makes sense why things haven't gone. And then with Sean Payton, like the Cardinals would have had a high price to pay for him, whereas the Broncos had a late first-round pick compared to the Cardinals trading the third overall pick. You weren't ever going to do that. So it makes sense the way that it is rolled out. And it is frustrating. It is unfortunate for Cardinal fans to have to sit here and watch everybody else. Like right now, you feel like the bridesmaid and everyone else is the bride getting married and having their new head coaches and everything. But the timing needs to be correct. And I actually agree with Michael Bidwell is right now you are in the midst of the Super Bowl. It's tomorrow. It's the biggest event in all of sports. Like it's up there with the Olympics and with the World Cup. The Super Bowl, at least in America, right? Is
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I take it back. My apologies. But point is, these NFL owners care about viewership. They care about clicks and they care about people paying attention to the team. And the Cardinals aren't going to get that right now. So, for better or for worse, right, wrong, or indifferent, this is the correct thing for the Cardinals to do to make sure that they get it right, but also to make sure that for the pockets, that they're getting as much notoriety and attention as possible. So
Exactly.
again,
Let's remember. Sorry to cut you off. Let's remember that Michael Bidwell, first and foremost, is a billionaire. He is running a business. That man is going to make so much money after the Super Bowl is played at State Farm Stadium tomorrow. I mean, he has every right for his own pocket's sake to focus on the Cardinals. I know a lot of fans might not want to hear that, but it is what it is at that point. Also touching on another point that you made. This is a very big offseason for the Cardinals. I mean, this offseason has the opportunity to change the trajectory of the franchise. You bring in a new general manager, bring in a new head coach. The number 3 overall pick can be somebody who can anchor the defense for years to come and grow into a franchise player. All of that combines into what is a very, very important decision to bring into a head coach. And I know what I just previously talked about, other candidates may have, fallen out of their grasp. There's still a lot of very, very good candidates left on the market. There's only 5 teams that were looking for a head coach. I think Frank Reich surprised a lot of people. Everybody and their mother felt like D'Amico was going to go to Houston. And then Sean Payton was tied with the Broncos from day one, regardless of him taking an interview with Arizona. The Colts, the Colts being the Colts right now, and we won't get too much into that. But granted, there wasn't a big pool of candidates to choose from to begin with, and a lot of top names on the Cardinals list did evaporate, but there's still a lot of really good candidates, and 2 that we're going to get into that I guess we can call them the final 2 finalists, Lou Anarumo and Mike Kafka. Anarumo being the Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator, Mike Kafka being the New York Giants offensive coordinator. But we can kind of just take it one by one. Anarumo, I believe, finished up his interview yesterday via Zoom with the Cardinals, his second interview. What do you like about this guy?
I like that this dude has a ton, and I mean a ton, of coaching experience. He's been coaching, Donnie, longer than we've been alive. It's over 30 years of experience at this point. The dude is a bit of a defensive mastermind or a guru, if you would like. He's not a brand new guy, obviously. Like a lot of NFL teams are so attracted to finding the next young, bright offensive mind. It's a copycat league, and everyone wants the next Kyle Shanahan. Everyone wants the next Sean McVay. With Anarumo, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Anarumo, I understand that it's not this flashy hire, and it's someone that not a lot of people are familiar with, but it might be the right hire because this is a guy who is completely understanding of the intricacies of the game. He's been around a while. He knows a thing or two because he's seen a thing or two, but he's also a culture builder. Look at the changes that the Bengals have undergone in the last 4 years. They went from a team that had the first overall pick to playing in a Super Bowl and then playing in another AFC Championship game the following year.
Yep.
This is a guy who's able to build up a defense. They've had several Pro Bowlers. They've had several guys turn their careers around, right, wrong, or indifferent. Eli Apple is experiencing the best football of his career with Cincinnati. And again, it's still not great, but he went from one of the biggest busts to at least a quality player that you don't mind having on your team. Von Bell had a career year this year. Jesse Bates is one of the best safeties in football no one talks about. Jermaine Pratt had a career year. Logan Wilson, one of the most
Mike
underrated
Hilton,
linebackers in
balling.
football. Mike Hilton, Chidobe Awuzie, Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, DJ Reader. All he does is build up good defenses, get the most out of guys that not a lot of people know about, and provide really good defenses that, Donnie, quite frankly, get under Patrick Mahomes' skin, get under Josh Allen's skin.
Yep.
They're
I
able to
was
figure
going to
it
say,
out.
so many people, and rightfully so, because when you have an offense constructed by Zach Taylor with Joe Burrow at the helm, with weapons like Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, it is so easy for that defense to be swept underneath the rug. Look at the job Lou Anarumo has done with that Cincinnati Bengals defense. He's not the reason they went to back-to-back AFC Championship games, but they are damn sure a big part of that, right? I think I read a stat to where the last 10 games prior to the AFC Championship, the most recent one, only once did that Bengals defense allow a team to go over 24 points.
You don't do that by accident,
absolutely nuts, man. And you point out the names. All the names you listed that are starters on the Bengals defense are good, are pretty damn good, obviously. But none of them are like crazy household names. None of them are like considered like some of like
outside of
the
Cincinnati.
top. Yep. Not a lot of them are considered like top 5 at their position. They're just a good, well-coached defense that show up in big games. And like you said, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, any big quarterback they've gone up against, they have not been ran over. Where so many times in this league, those guys take over games. It's so hard for a guy like Mahomes or a guy like Allen to take over games because there's 21 other players on the field. But yet, year in and year out, they do it. Not against the Bengals.
100%. It's part of building a culture with him. Is clearly these guys buy in. You don't hear anything about him being like this big players coach, but maybe that's also because he's only a coordinator right now. Who knows? Maybe he takes over as a head coach and turns into this guy that people gravitate to. And quite frankly, Donnie, look at what he's done with, I'm not going to call it lesser talent, but like you said, like guys that aren't household names, give him to the Cardinals. Look at what he does with Budda Baker. Look at what he does with Jalen Thompson. Look at what he does with a potential Will Anderson or a Jalen Carter, Isaiah Simmons, Zaven Collins. There is potential for him to turn this team around very quickly on the defensive side of the ball. And if we're being honest, that is absolutely the biggest glaring need right now, is to turn this defense around. That was a speed bump in 2022 and a best case scenario.
Yeah, dude, there were times where the Cardinals defense showed up and you're like, okay, this is what we signed up for. And then there's other times where they completely disappeared and it's like, what happened? And like, granted, like, you know, a lot of the time I do feel like the defense was put in very, very bad situations by the offense. And that's just kind of the whole like team aspect of football. But case in point, man, culture has been a word synonymous with the Cardinals since Cliff Kingsbury has left. You listen to guys like Lucida Smith, like Isaiah Simmons, like Budda Baker, talk about what they want in the next head coach. And the general message between all of the players talking is they just want somebody who is going to lead and going to be themselves. I don't think that's a shot at Cliff Kingsbury, but they just want somebody that's going to walk in the room and be like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. If you follow my lead, we will have success. You know, everybody just do their job. And that goes back to Monty Austinfort with his time with the New England Patriots. If you just do your job and you can get everybody to only worry about them staying in their lane and them doing their job, look at what happens.
100%.
I think the culture aspect of it is a really big thing, like you brought up. Are there any things you don't like about the Anarumo hire? I'll give my 2 cents and I'll pass it right on to you. I think Kyler Murray and getting the best out of him is a very, very big priority moving forward for very obvious reasons. I would just be curious to see who he brings on as an offensive coordinator. And also, the age doesn't scare me, but it is at least something noteworthy to talk about. Granted, I don't think you expect a head coach to be around for 20 years like Bill Belichick has been, but still.
I think my only concern, and this is a smaller concern, in the 30 plus years he's been coaching, he has never once been a head coach. He's never been the guy calling the shots, not in college, not in the pros. That's a little bit of a red flag. It's not a big one, but to be coaching that long and never get that opportunity, and he's been a defensive coordinator for a while. He's got 4 seasons under his belt with Cincinnati. He was an interim defensive coordinator with Miami a few years back. That's it. Like, it's not like he's been this was it Dick LeBeau for the Steelers?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not like he's been a defensive coordinator for so long. So there is a little bit of risk there that you don't have a guy who's been calling all the shots and everything. But again, playing devil's advocate and the other side of the coin here is Monty Ossenfort might be looking just for him to do his job, stay in his lane, like you said, and take care of the business that he needs to take care of. So there is a way to minimize the risk, but there's certainly risk here. This isn't some slam dunk hire or anything like that.
Sure, no, but like also speaking on that, I think either of these two guys, because we're going to get to Kafka here in a moment, I think either of the two would be a very, very good hire. Slam dunk, probably not. I think Anarumo would be great for a number of reasons. I think Kafka would be great for a number of reasons. But with Anarumo, you're getting more that like classic head coach. Like you don't see a lot of like Mike Tomlins in the league, for example. You know, not a lot of like, I guess, Bill Belichick's, even though like he's like pretty savvy on the offensive side of the ball. But you're absolutely right, man. The league is trending towards these like young, hot offensive play callers, and that's what like Cliff Kingsbury to Arizona in the first place.
100%.
So Anarumo, with any other candidate, pluses and minuses, but the thing about like the lack of head coaching experience, really only one of the 3 finalists that the Cardinals had planned to interview the second time, only Brian Flores had the head coaching experience, and that tenure in Miami has been dissected very, very thoroughly. And it's either one side of the coin or the other on where you feel about him as a head coach. So I think the only other guys were like Sean Payton and Frank Reich that had actual head coaching experience in this entire process. So, something noteworthy, something to watch. Mike Kafka, and I'll ask you a question here at the end after we're done discussing these two. I'm leaning a little bit towards Kafka if it's really down to these two guys. I do want to hear your 2 cents, though, on what you like about him as just an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, the thing that I like about Anarumo, excuse me, we're talking about Kafka now. The thing that I like about Kafka is he's had not a ton of coaching experience, but look at the guys he's worked under. He's worked under Andy Reid. He's worked with Eric Bieniemy. He's worked with Brian Daboll. Like, he's worked with 3 of the brightest offensive minds in football in the last 10 years. And in his first year as a full-time play caller, he helped Daniel Jones have perhaps the best season of his career. Daniel Jones, who was looking like mediocre in a best case scenario, suddenly became a more than quality quarterback, a guy that you can win with. And taking that step forward for him, because he just was not it. He was not worth the top 10 pick that the Giants spent on him. But the Giants went to the playoffs this year, and the Giants won a playoff game. And while Brian Daboll won Coach of the Year, and, you know, deservedly so for his efforts and everything, you can't deny that Kafka did have a role to play in that team. And Kafka is a quarterback through and through. He played quarterback in the pros for a handful of years. He was a quarterback's coach with Patrick Mahomes. He's one of those guys that is, I won't call him a quarterback guru just yet, but he knows the intricacies of how to play the position. And that's got to be something that's attractive for the Cardinals, is to bring him in, get him to work with Kyler Murray and help take him to that next level that I'm pretty sure we all agree he's more than capable of. He just needs help to get to that point.
Yeah, the Giants were number 10 in Football Outsiders offensive efficiency this season. They were dead last the year prior, before Kafka got there. You talk about the job he can possibly do with the Cardinals offense, with so much talent around them. It's exciting. It's very, very exciting. And a lot of people are hesitant on a guy because they were once sold on the idea of Cliff Kingsbury, an offensive-minded dude who had no head coaching experience in the NFL, coming in trying to get the best out of Kyler Murray. A lot of people feel like they've heard that story before. For me, though, the track records are night and day different. Like Kafka, and we were talking about this before the show, is not the reason Patrick Mahomes is where he is at today. But like he was there since the very beginning for Mahomes, and he was his quarterbacks coach for I think 4 years. Coach under Andy Reid, like you said, worked with Eric Bieniemy, a very well-respected offensive mind in the NFL. Goes to New York, turns Daniel Jones into a guy who's going to get paid. And I mean, you just look at the job he's done at the pro level. That's so much more exciting than what Cliff Kingsbury brought after being fired from Texas Tech.
Right.
After so many losing seasons. Right? I mean, I get the average fan not falling in love with this hire, but man, like I think Kafka can do such a great job with Kyler Murray if his track record with Mahomes and Daniel Jones is any indication of what he can do.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up the way that Cliff came in, because Cliff was on the downward of his career. Kafka is on an upward trajectory, and quite the trajectory, if we're being honest. Like you said, he got there and has worked with Patrick Mahomes since day one. He was with the Chiefs to work there with him. And there's no denying that Kafka was part of the help that Mahomes got to get to that point. He was his positional coach. I mean, like, yes, Andy Reid's a huge part. Yes, Bieniemy's a huge part. You got to give Kafka his dues when it comes to helping Mahomes get to that point. And it's not a coincidence, like we said, that Daniel Jones has the best year of his career the moment that Kafka gets to New York. If he comes to Arizona, you have to like the potential of Kyler Murray taking his game to the next level. And obviously, you do have to put a little bit of an asterisk next to it because Kyler Murray will be coming off an ACL tear. Mm-hmm. But there is that potential for them to stick with Kafka for a handful of years and give him that opportunity to get Kyler to the next level. I think Kyler's upside, absolute upside, is a top 5 quarterback. This is a dude with all the intangibles to be a dominant quarterback. We just haven't seen him get to that point yet for one reason or another. But you get him with a Mike Kafka, at that point, there's no excuses.
No, absolutely. And another thing I would like about the Kafka hire is how many times, and like you're seeing it with the Eagles, you're seeing it now with the Giants, funny enough, we're talking about him. If you bring in an offensive play caller as your head coach, you don't have to worry about another team stealing that guy and promoting them to your head coach because you already have them there. You already have them there as your head coach. And granted, like that does leave you like susceptible to like losing defensive coordinators, but like you said a little bit earlier, how many defensive coordinators outside of like D'Amico Ryans are actually getting these jobs? Very, very far and few between. It's a copycat league. Everybody wants the next Sean McVay. Everybody wants the next Kyle Shanahan. And as a result, you're seeing a lot of these young offensive guys get these jobs. Sometimes they pan out, sometimes they don't. But at the end of the day, if you can find your guy, you do not have to worry about them going anywhere. You don't have to worry about another team trying to poach them.
Yep. Absolutely. Is that allows you to plug him in as your offensive mind for the next however many years. Like this is, we talked earlier about the NFL being a copycat league and wanting the next great offensive mind, young offensive mind. That's Kafka. He's only 35 years old. The sky's the limit for this guy.
No, 100%. And granted, that having an OC as your head coach should not be the only selling point for Kafka as your guy. But I do think it's a nice little cherry on top of the sundae, and when you're making the case for Kafka. So we've talked very, very glowingly about Mike Kafka, and rightfully so. Is there anything that would make you pause about hiring him over a guy like Anarumo?
Just the fact that he doesn't have a lot of play calling experience. He's only been an offensive coordinator for 1 year, Donnie. Mm-hmm. And working under Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy and Brian Daboll. I praise Kafka for this, but this is a double-edged sword. How much has he been responsible for? How much credit can we give to Kafka when he has worked under arguably the greatest offensive mind ever,
Sure.
arguably the best offensive coordinator in the NFL right now, and a guy who just won Coach of the Year. Like, there is risk here with Kafka because he doesn't have a lot of experience. I mentioned to you before off mic that I feel like Kafka needs another year. He might be a year away from being a truly like top tier head coaching candidate. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't hire him in 2023, but there's absolutely risk reward here, and the risk is pretty big in my opinion.
No, for sure. And, Kafka might be the guy where, he's in a lot of group projects to get A's, but is he the reason why all the group projects are getting A's, or is he just kind of part of that success? And I guess it's up to NFL organizations to find out, right? I mean, but also on the other side of that topic, there's a saying that losing breeds losing, right? Success breeds success. When you're around organizations like the Chiefs under Andy Reid, when you're around the reigning NFL Coach of the Year, I feel like you would know what to do and what not to do. I really like how you brought up he might need a year. Would you be willing, with Kyler already pretty much out, everybody's assuming he's going to be out for at least half the season, would you be willing to just let 2023 be whatever it is and let him gain that experience as a play caller, as a head coach, and then 2024, that's when you kind of turn the knob up in terms of expectations?
I think you have to do that with any coach that you're bringing in right now, whether it's Anarumo or Kafka or anyone else that might be like a sleeper candidate to be the head coach. I think you need to allow 2023 to be a mulligan for him and understand that this is probably a team that will be picking top 5 again in the 2024 class. So, yes, I think that 100% you need to be completely understanding. The good news is Michael Bidwell appears to be a very patient head coach, unless your name is Steve Wilkes.
Yeah, no, one doubt. And I think patience more than anything has been the
owner. Patient owner.
No, I knew what you were doing. Patience has been the word of the entire offseason for the Cardinals. They wanted to get a GM and before they got a head coach, and they did that. They're obviously taking their sweet time trying to find a head coach. They have everything narrowed down. Just haven't made a decision yet. These appear to be the 2 finalists. I mean, we've heard that they won't make a decision until after Super Bowl for obvious reasons. Everything publicly is rightfully so. These are the only 2 guys to get second interviews, pointing towards Anarumo or Kafka. Not that there's a wrong decision here, because I do like both of these candidates. But if you're Michael Bidwell, you want this organization to turn its tide, get back to where people want this franchise to be. Who are you hiring?
If I am personally Michael Bidwell, I am hiring Anarumo. And I'm hiring him because of the past experience and the fact that this guy is well established and he's a culture builder. However, I also have to understand that Anarumo is not going to get Cardinal fans excited the way that Kafka would. And Kafka is the guy who generates the media's attention to come to Arizona. Why? Because he's the young offensive mind, Donnie. It's a copycat league. Everyone wants it. Kafka brings you that media attention. So if I'm predicting between these 2, I think it's Kafka. If I were Bidwell, I'm hiring Anarumo.
You see, I think it's the opposite. I personally would hire Kafka, but I think they're going to go Anarumo. I personally, Kyler and maximizing him is number 1 priority for me. You can always find a decent enough guy to get a really good output out of guys like Buddha, out of guys like Isaiah Simmons, out of guys like hopefully Zach Allen, if he resigns here in the offseason. If you can just manage to be somewhat decent to good on the defensive side of the ball, and you get somebody in there that can really get that Cardinals offense going like Cliff was supposed to, now we're talking. Now we're in business. But, I mean, dude, we saw it with the Vikings this year. Like, how many times have we seen a just fully loaded team offensively spurn out in the playoffs because they don't have a defense? And, dude, it's so different, the football that is played in the postseason and in the regular season. right? I think if the Cardinals were to go 12-5 every year, but just lose every playoff game they're in, I don't think they care about regular season success. People weren't happy whenever they went and they lost to the Rams in a wild card 2 years ago. Where regular season success means nothing. They want playoff wins and they want appearances in the Super Bowl. Yep. So on that account, who is more equipped to really get the most out of their team from the roster, top to bottom, 1 to 53? It's probably Anarumo. I still would hire Kafka, but we're just two dudes on the podcast. So
sitting at the end of the bar, as some coaches would refer.
Anarumo, Kafka, it looks like those are the final two. Richie Bradshaw, I had the pleasure of being at Radio Road this past week and did a lot of cool things. Got to talk to a lot of cool people, got to meet some really awesome people. Little Birdie told me something.
Ooh.
Little Birdie pulled me aside and said, hey, and I've known this person for a while. They were the person, and I was telling you this off mic, to tell me that Cliff was potentially thinking about stepping away a week before ESPN reported it. They were the same person to tell me that Brian Flores was going to be their top priority as head coach before they even asked to interview him. Obviously, we all saw that pointed out, but nonetheless, I do have a lot of trust. And I don't want to point this out as me reporting it, but I do want to put it out in case it does happen. Richie, when Michael Bidwell said the team was not going to continue their coaching search until after the Super Bowl, a lot of people put that as, just wants to take the weekend off, maybe watch the game at his nice little suite. And it is going to be a good game between the Chiefs and the Eagles. No doubt about that. I think there's a reason. I think there's a reason they're waiting till after the Super Bowl, Richie.
Hit me.
Because they did not have a first interview with either of the Philadelphia Eagles coordinator, Jonathan Gannon or Shane Steichen. They have to wait until after the Super Bowl is played to talk to either one of them. I'm going to bring this Little Birdie back around because Little Birdie told me, watch out for Shane Steichen as the Arizona Cardinals top head coaching candidate.
Now that is a needle mover.
This is something I have been pounding the table for since day one. When you look at Steichen and what he has done with Jalen Hurts, with the Philadelphia Eagles offense, man, if there's one player that's kind of comparable to Kyler Murray, just in the sense of how they should be used at the next level, it's Jalen Hurts. Look at the mastermind behind Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts came in raw as a passer. There was a reason he was not a first-round pick. There was a lot of good things about him. There's a reason why he was not a first-round pick. Look at where he's at now. He's playing in the Super Bowl, Richie. He's playing in the Super Bowl. Granted, there's a hell of a team around him, and I don't want to discount anybody. But Jalen Hurts' step up in play has been a very, very big reason why the Philadelphia Eagles are where they are. Shane Steichen is a very, very big reason why Jalen Hurts is where he is. Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated reported last week that the Cardinals had did a lot of work into Steichen. And there's some rumors, some whispers that they also want to talk to Jonathan Gannon. Watch out for Steichen. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I will own up to it. But when I get these nuggets, more times than not, they've been right. So I'm just saying, for all 10 people that listen to this podcast, watch out for Shane Steichen.
Like I said, that's a needle mover. That, Donnie, is the hire that ticks all the boxes. That is a guy who has several years as an offensive coordinator under his belt. That is the young offensive mind. That's the dude who has worked with plenty of talented quarterbacks now in his time in the NFL. He took Jalen Hurts, who at one point in time wasn't even like the guy in Philly. There was talks heading into this offseason, Donnie, about whether, or last offseason, whether or not the Eagles should draft a quarterback to compete with Hurts. And now look at him. He had a top 5 season. He was a second-team All-Pro. He was an MVP finalist.
Yep. Shane
Steichen is one of the biggest reasons for that. And he has firmly placed himself amongst some of the best offensive minds in football. A.J. Brown set a record this year for not only his own personal receiving yards, but the Eagles' single season receiving yards. Devontae Smith also had 1,000 yards. They became the first Eagles duo to both have 1,000 yards in a single season. Miles Sanders rushed for over 1,000 yards for the first time in his career. There were 3 Pro Bowlers on that offensive line. Dallas Goedert had a Pro Bowl this year as a tight end for the team. He was one of the best tight ends in football, despite the fact that he missed a handful of games. This offense was, excuse my language, it was damn near perfect, in spite of the fact that they were banged up a little bit here and there. But, I mean, overall, Steichen is one of the biggest reasons for that offensive success. He should have been one of the biggest names on the market, but he just so happened to take his team to a Super Bowl. And a lot of teams have now filled their head coaching candidacies. If he is not picked this year, he will be the #1 candidate next year. Yeah. However, this should be the Cardinals guy.
I would agree, dude. 31 points against the 49ers defense in the NFC Championship. We can talk about how they had me and you playing at quarterback for the 49ers in that game.
But that has nothing to do with the defense.
That defense was far and away the #1 defense in the league. And you put up 30. Come on. There's so much excitement and so many things differently they can do. If Steichen is, like you said, he's going to be the guy next offseason if he doesn't get a job. And, maybe he's being held back in the coaching candidacy from, the Eagles' success and how far they've gone to the postseason. But still, man, I think, did he get like a second interview in Carolina and Indianapolis?
Could not tell you.
So I know he's at least had other opportunities in his coaching cycle. But like you said, if he does not get hired by the Cardinals or the Colts this go around, he's going to be the guy next year, like without a doubt. But yeah, I had to share it with everybody. When I'm told something, I really want other people to know. So Shane Steichen, watch out. There's a reason. There's a reason they're winning, and I don't want people to be duped by the whole like Super Bowl comment. There's a reason they're winning. All I'm saying.
I like it. I think that is the hire.
Richie, I think by the next time we record, we're going to have a new head coach. There's a handful of potential candidates they can go. I think pretty much any guy they could possibly go with will be a good hire for one reason or another. I think the Cardinals are in a good spot, man. I think despite them taking so long and, candidates not really panning out like they wanted it to, I think they're in a good spot.
I do too. I think that patience has been the right way to go about it. And I think the 2 finalists you have right now are really fun. I think Shane Steichen would be the guy to put you over the top in terms of like your head coaching search.
Yep. Absolutely agree. I guess there's only one way to find out, right?
Only one way to find out.
Only one way to find out. So probably by next time we appear in front of you guys, the Cardinals will have a head coach, which is really exciting, like Richie is doing. Fingers crossed. You never know with this team or this organization. But until then, my name is Donnie Druin, joined by my co-host Richie Bradshaw. Go to comment, like, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget the last hours remaining to win this beautiful football shipped to you for free. Freefitty.com. Do not miss it. All you got to do, give us your Super Bowl 57 prediction in the previous video that we recorded. We'll see you guys next time. And like I said, thank you so much. Hopefully, just hopefully, we'll be talking to a new head coach soon.